Hello, and welcome to the Oklahoma Venture Forum podcast. I am your host, Lindsay Miller, with my marketing assistant, and I'm joined today with Tom Evans, who is going to be speaking at our December OVF luncheon. He is with Encompass Financial, and I'm actually met you in person before. I've listened to one of your workshops. I'm so excited for this conversation. So thank you for joining us, Tom.
Well, thank you, Lindsay. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so let's just start off. Tell me a little bit about you and about Encompass, and give us the ground floor.
So, grew up in a small town, Cherokee, Oklahoma, where the expectation was absolutely that you're going to have some type of a business. It was no surprise to anyone that you might do your thing. And was looking at when we were going to go to college, someone came in and said, there's a furniture store downtown. And someone says, you know what, I bet you could buy that and pay your way through college. And so my wife and I, we weren't even married yet. We had been high school sweethearts. And so we buy this furniture and carpet store, and we do that. We pay our way through college. I'd go to school on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Cheryl would go to school on Tuesday, Thursday. And we would sell furniture, lay carpet, and when I graduated, we sold it. And it was just a wonderful thing. But from that, it gave us a real immediate immersion into business. It was funny. I'd be in my college accounting classes, and I would say, I know what debits and credits are in real life, and so it was just kind of a beginning interest in that, and I knew I was going to be self-employed. I was just always kind of been wired that way, and so after graduation, I had kind of about finance background, but I had a banker one time who was a good friend, and he had a Wall Street Journal, and he says, he said, there's all these banks failing and savings and loan failing. He says there's going to be this new career for an appraiser. And at the time, there was no licensure. You could just be a farm bureau agent or a local bank, anyone, an auctioneer. Someone could just be an appraiser. And so he says, you'd be really good at that. You're just curious and you're good at math and finance. And I thought, you know what? I would enjoy that. And so started that career almost right at 40 years ago. And with a business background, I always just started gravitating to business related valuation, to the point today where we do just incredible corporate valuation work all over the United States. And it could be something for a large company. It could still be a mom and pop, and we value all kinds of crazy and goofy things. But I just have the greatest job in the history of the world. I get up in the morning and I'm excited to go. And from that valuation work, that led us into the entrepreneurial space for investing in it, our due diligence work, helping companies buy a company, sell a company, just working well with others, but all with a background in, hey, how does this work? How does this add value? And it's just been a fascinating career.
Yeah, I love that. It would be fascinating,
Yeah.
and very diverse too in all of the different areas that you're in. How often do you find yourself leaning back into those furniture store roots?
Well, what's interesting. One is, that was a great training. And I had worked at the local grocery store where, I had a great manager. I mean, this guy, I remember one time he said, hey, listen, we have to have repeat business. We have to. So how do we get repeat business? We're going to get it with good service. And I was probably, 15, 16-year-old kid, but I thought that, what, he's right. How do you keep people to coming back for more? Because we're a small state. I cannot survive on one-offs. I have to have repeat business. And so early on, I had a concept of providing good service. Now that's honest service, and nothing ever false about that. Sometimes you got to be the bearer of bad news to that person. But I just understood develop that. So then when we got to the furniture store, it's like, how in the world do you get people to come back? And it was like, hey, let's, find a way to make this work for them, and creative. And we were so naive. We're 19 and 20 years old. We've got yardsticks. We're the Northwest Oklahoma headquarters, and it was just a sense of not only selling ourselves, but selling the concept of well, if you didn't come buy from us, you went to the wrong place, you know. And it was just great training, and I think too, in an area where we had support. I mean, people just they love the fact that here are these couple of college kids at this store, and so it really was a great training ground, and it taught us so much.
Whenever you talked about, how people really loved these two kids running it, I'm sure you had a lot of community support. Like people were like, we want them to succeed. And I feel that so much in Oklahoma still today that people really do want you to do well.
Oh yeah,
But
overwhelmingly. Yeah, I think you're right, Lindsay. I think people don't understand that overwhelmingly people want you to do good. They want good things for you. They're happy for you. It's a real small part of the population that takes joy in someone failing. And although that gets a lot of weight sometimes in our mind, they live rent free in our head. But the reality is, overwhelmingly, people are good, they're kind, and they want you to just ring the bell.
absolutely. I'm drawn a little bit to this due diligence piece. So I've been through that before. I know how hard it can be on everyone involved. And so talk me through that a little bit, like your role in that. Are you also doing like some mental health support and like what else are you doing whenever you're walking people through your consultation and your business valuation and the due diligence
You bet.
process?
Well, I keep going back to the bedrock when I first started. I was so blessed with people that had little nuggets that I pulled from. And I remember one time had this guy, he said, now, Tom, you're my eyes and ears because I'm not going to be there. So when you are there for me, just always think about you being my eyes and ears. And so I think about that when I'm doing a due diligence is one, who's the end user of this? Am I going to have to compile a report for someone? Am I going to verbally tell someone about it? Am I going to advise someone whether they should do something or not?
Mhm.
And when I have a mindset of being someone else's eyes and ears, it's not about me, and I really try to free my mind of any bias. I just want to be agnostic to anything but just what is it this entity is doing, and try to dig into it and through a series of checklists of things that help us identify, and for their benefit, for everyone's benefit, maybe I see a weakness, gosh, 40 years of doing this, we've done thousands of valuation type business stuff, thousands. So we get this little snippet of one little thing that might help or that I see as a weakness, but they don't know it. And so I've always had, unless I'm directly involved, not to interject an opinion. We almost always try to say, "Hey, here's something you might think about," that would help them succeed. Because oftentimes, especially in an early part of a life of an entity, certain hurdles if they're not able to overcome them can stop the deal, can squelch it. Whereas it may be with someone's awareness of that even being a hurdle and help them to how to get around it or over it. It's a cool thing to help someone do that.
Yeah, I think that's probably rather unique in some ways, is that I really have someone walking alongside you in such a purposeful way. And I can see how that brings a lot of value.
Yeah, and then on the due diligence, too, we've done this long enough that we know why we ask these questions. There's a reason. It's not just so someone can know, what where, what they do. It's also to because we know a pitfall that someone else had in a certain area, and so again, it just helps us, recognize a kind of gauge where someone is at in their business activity.
Yeah, we're talking to the Oklahoma Venture, Forum community here. And so like bring up questions that you ask. Like what are some typical things where you're like every single time I'm evaluating a business, these are things I ask and these are things people always get wrong.
Well, I think one of them is one, there's a real lack of understanding of financials, and why we do accounting. Rarely does the individual do their own accounting. They may have the skill set to do it, and it's usually a rudimentary, process one can do on their own. but they outsource that. And either there's a time delay and they're getting the reports back, or they don't understand it, or they're embarrassed. They think, gosh, if I ask a question, someone's going to think I don't know what I'm doing. And, and I tell people, hey, the person doing the accounting may not know what they're doing either. They just may be entering data. Numbers are there, but they don't know what they mean. So I think, that's a biggie. And not to get like in the weeds of stuff, but to understand what story is this telling me, and where I stand. What's my burn rate? What do I need to do to be a little bit, more conservative in the beginning? That's going to help me later. Understanding payroll and the responsibility of it, and just having an awareness of the life cycle as I go through and grow my business. So accounting is almost always one of the big ones. And then the move. There's a real movement from theory to reality. And I see that in a business that they come into everything on theory. They've been maybe, educationally brought up, or they have an idea or concept, or they've read or they've studied, but now it moves into reality. And the reality is you got to get out of bed in the morning and make it happen. Discipline. Do you have a self-discipline to get the work done? A lot of times, Lindsay, I'll see something that's faltering, or not really doing what they thought it would do, but I go back to, and they really didn't have a discipline to work. Or we're bombarded with distraction. It may be something as simple as you just can't put your phone down. If I see someone's, on Facebook, and they're commenting every 7 minutes, well, that pulls you away, and that's a small example, but we find that we don't have a discipline. So I think understanding accounting, asking someone for help. I always tell people, find someone like me that lovingly, but with experience, will kind of explain, hey, this is what this is. This is what this means when they're asking for that. So that when they go into a banker or an investor, or to a pitch or anything, they might better understand why someone is going to look for a certain thing. But that's usually one of the biggest ones we see.
Yeah. What stage do people typically come to you, and when should they?
Yeah, well, I tell you what, and I think people would, if that know me, would tell this too. I've always, forever and ever, said my door is open. I do ask you to make an appointment, but I'm a free first look. I've never in my life charged anybody for a first free look. I have people drive to Enid, Oklahoma, or Tulsa. We have another place there, just to say, I just want to bare my soul. Because sometimes, Lindsay, an entrepreneur, they don't have anyone they can talk to without it being deemed as being weak. Sometimes they can't really even talk to a spouse or a partner. They just can't. They just can't. And so I'm a good business therapy. I have no dog in the hunt. I try to be really good with my critique. For it to be for the right reasons. And so I think that's one thing I try to tell people, hey, the earlier you can find someone, that will mentor you through with all of the right reasons, the better. And I will say this, even I noticed really seasoned entrepreneurs will still circle back to people and bare their soul, and just say, hey, this is what I'm facing, this is what I'm looking at. And because input from others, that is a wonderful thing. It's a really special thing when you can find that, and it's not easily found, but you want to seek that out.
Yeah. Okay. So Tom at encompassfsi.com.
Yes.
Will get in your email box. Expect an email from me because you're speaking to my soul right now. As a founder of, a marketing technology company, we launched a year and a half ago, like not even quite that. And yeah, there's so much that I don't know. but there's also questions of like, who can you ask these to other than Google, where people won't be like, okay, we want to use her product or invest in her product, but she doesn't know what she's talking about when it comes to, all of these subjects. And that's very real and very true. And I don't know if there's gender stereotypes within that too, but being a female founder, I definitely feel
Yeah.
like I need to know more than I should all the time.
Yeah, well, right. And sometimes, I've my wife was a college president. My daughters are very accomplished,
Mm.
experienced, and so and I had single mom sisters. I mean, so I get that aspect sometimes from a female role of sometimes there's not the avenue for the good old boys club to be in, and
Yeah.
so it's just a reality. So you have to really think about how do I stand out in a way that tell someone my story, and how do I find, and then two, ask people to promote you. I find that's one thing people are embarrassed to do. They're shy of, is to say, hey, would you mind giving me a referral? Would you mind teeing me up? I'm a great connector. I have people all the time. I mean, literally all the time will call and say, hey, could you introduce me to so and so? Hey, I really think this person could help me. Would you mind somehow finding a way to connecting me? Because we you end up kind of knowing different people, and sometimes I'll see people say, oh my gosh, Lindsay needs to know so and so. They would be a great fit. And so finding someone that will help you do that too is wonderful.
Absolutely. It must be genetic because I know one of your daughters very well. And I tell people all of the time that one of Kara's superpowers is absolutely connecting people. Like you just say like half a sentence to her and she already has like five things that she has in mind to like connect you to other people. And she herself is just so well connected and knows everyone. So yeah, I think that must be hereditary.
It could be, yeah.
So you said something early on that I don't want to let go, just because I'm not like a hardline journalist here on our podcast. I like to have a little bit of fun. And you mentioned that there's all sorts of like nutty businesses and things that you have done. Like, what's like a really strange one that sort of sticks out in your mind?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, certainly the Wild West when cannabis came to be. I mean, that
Oh,
was that was a rodeo. You had all this stuff and extremely limited awareness of business. I mean, just an absolute, couldn't believe that Uncle Joe wanted his money back, or to budget or save. So the cannabis deal was crazy when that started. And then I probably, oh my gosh, I've had so many crazy fun things. And then to see too, what makes money. I remember one time just out of the blue, I did when the tribes began selling tobacco early on. Most all of that tobacco was provided by a North Korean, or no, it would have been a South Korean. Well, whichever one is free. It was a Korean tobacco company, and they would ship in these massive containers of tobacco boxes with nothing on it. And so this company would wrap whatever you wanted your menthols to be, they would wrap it. But it was all the same. It was all the same, and I'm valuing that tobacco company. And it was so crazy because I'm aware that I don't
right.
care. There was like 20 different wraps, but it was the same cigarette, and they were just a packager, and to think that that's where it came from, and it was, and they made millions of dollars, and I'm like watching this thinking, I mean, who knew you could even do that,
Yeah.
and of course, sometimes the ebb and flow of oil and gas related stuff. And then of course for me, sometimes it's sad because I'll go in, Lindsay, and I'm looking at something and I'm thinking they're broke and they don't know it.
Mm.
They absolutely, there is a tidal wave of risk coming and they don't know it. They just don't see it, and because they just get so focused in what they're doing, they're not aware of economic changes, and it can happen. And I know to a younger audience in Oklahoma, they don't understand, for example, ask some older guy or gal what it was like when Penn Square Bank failed. And that's an example in Oklahoma. Anyone that's like like I would say mid-50s and older can remember, it stopped business in Oklahoma and other places, but it was absolute stopped. And I think about when I do business stuff and I go into this, okay, what could be that type of risk that that business has? I mean, it's always could be, we could have something happen to our health or our marriage, or, we can have things external that happen, but what is economically out there?
Mhm.
And that's where I try to be a good friend to that business to think about, hey, what might that risk be that you may not be seeing, or opportunity? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the same thing. What propels one person over another is a lot of times they just recognize the opportunity and they seized it. They were able to allow themselves to move forward and take advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so you have quite a few services that you offer, right? You're doing business valuation and investment advisor and litigation support and feasibility studies and all of these things. So, do you have a personal favorite thing that you
Oh
really
yeah.
enjoy working on?
Well, I mean, the most fun thing is in transactional, when someone's going to buy or sell a company, because
Mm.
that's fun. I mean, someone's work, and they've worked so hard and they've built it up and they're able to, get the fruits of their labor. That's the most enjoyable part probably is that when someone gets to, clip the coupon and, they get to book, monetarily, what they've worked so hard to build. That's fun. The valuation, that's my sweet spot. Because I'm a curious person, and it's just, I mean, I've got, I don't know how many files I've got yet to do, but I thumb through them sometimes, and I can't wait to get to the certain file because I'm going to get to learn about this business,
Mhm.
and what they do, and just just be surprised by what happens within it. So that's probably the main thing. There's things we do in our toolbox that I don't necessarily enjoy doing as much. And I tend to kind of let those go. If I don't like it, don't want to do it. But there's some things we have certain clients, they come to us for that. So, hey,
Mhm.
holistically, we'll do whatever they need.
Yeah, I think that's I'm drawn to the same thing or resonate with what you said for because like for marketing, we have a wide range of businesses that we get to work with and learning about all of these various industries and businesses out there is so much fun. Like
Yeah.
the things that I can talk about now compared to, 10 years ago is I don't know, it's really fun and I like it, even
Yeah.
if I never have to talk about, trailer parts or semi truck parts or anything anymore. I can, and I know a lot about
Yeah.
wheel balancing those things.
That's right. It's just a body of experience and I think when you do a little bit, in different sectors, by no means do we become experts in it, but you know just enough about it, and
Mhm.
it's amazing how often that lends itself to another, type of business that's no way similar, but the pieces of the business come, the needs that they have and a lot of things that they face, especially in employee situations or growth or deciding what is profitable, because a lot of times I'll see someone, they're good at something, but it has no margin. It doesn't make any money. But if they just moved one little spot over, they could just make exponential more, just because of being in a different area of what their expertise points them. So, it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, I think the valuation part would be really fun, or the part with the transaction,
Yeah.
because you have like probably two sides of the coin that are both really happy to be going through it too, right? Like one is accomplished something, and the other is like on a grand adventure to like
Yeah,
take
that's true.
over.
And then, well, I'm fairly good at working with different personalities, because sometimes you get in certain space and in every, they might have a certain, personality that's very strong, and yet that could be kind of faltering the situation, and just working through and leading people to accomplish, the goal, and it's not about me, it's about these entities successfully getting this done. And so sometimes it's just quarterbacking.
Mhm.
It's just seeing, hey, listen, hey, let's park that and let's worry on this and move it forward. But yeah, it's wonderful. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell just by like listening to you talk about all of this stuff how much you love it.
Yeah, I do.
So when we're thinking about like all these entrepreneurs that are listening to us on this podcast, and you have to give one piece of advice to all
Uh,
of us here in Oklahoma, what comes to mind?
I would say find a way to quickly tell me what you do. Tell me your story. Don't walk up to me and start talking about sports. Don't walk up to me and start talking. Well, Lord, please don't come and talk to me. I can't stand politics. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. You have this brief moment to tell your story. So find a way with a smile on your face and one, don't assume that I know what you do. I mean, well, one, your company name may mean nothing to what you do. And so I would say, Lindsay, develop a real quick shake a hand, boldly look me in the eye and tell me what you do. And how can I help you? This is what I do. And is there anything I can do for you, Lindsay? I mean, is there anything that I could do to help you? I'd be thrilled to meet with you. Here's my number, here's my card, whatever. But be proactive, and seek that business, that, because I see a lot of times that they don't take the opportunity when you're in a room, you're not there to eat. One of the greatest things that I learned really young, it actually came from my wife, was at a conference, and someone said, listen, you are not at this conference to eat. Don't go through that buffet line first. What do you want to call it? Working the room or working the crowd. That's your opportunity to see these people. And so take advantage of it. So I think that if there's one thing I would tell a younger entrepreneur, find a way to tell me what you do quickly, on point, and then ask me how I can help. It's a magic thing to ask someone to be a part of their ride because people want to do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful advice. And I'm sure many listeners needed to hear it, including myself. Like, as we have an OVF luncheon today that I'm going to right after this, and I'm going to keep that in my mind of like, work the room, Lindsay. I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it just tremendously. I cannot wait to hear you speak on the panel in December. And so for anyone who wants to find you, it's encompassfsi.com. We also gave you his email address, tom@encompassfsi.com.
Tom.Evans.
Tom.Evans. Oh, thank you. Oh, I messed it up in the middle. We'll put it in the show notes so that it's right. See, you can't trust me. That's why I'm not a hardline journalist. I'm just this little podcaster for OVF.
Oh, you're wonderful. Wonderful.
I hope that there's not more fact checking on all the rest. But anyway, just kidding. Tom.Evans@encompassfsi.com. And you can hear from him in December at the Tulsa OVF luncheon. So thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, we'll see you in December.
Okay. Thank you for having me, Lindsay.